Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize. Remember this?
You know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Log Talk with Pertnear Outdoors. This is your host Billy Harvey, and I'm excited to have you here for today's discussion with Trey Bowman from Tomorrow's Hunter. Trey is a podcast host, and much like ourselves, very similar guy, young in his early 30s, a new father, passionate outdoorsman. Sounds like him and I have a lot in common from the conversation that we have on this podcast. Great dude. Has doing some really good things with their platform. Definitely encourage you to go check them out. But this discussion today is kind of wrapped around conservation funding, getting new hunters involved, mentoring. The main thing we want to talk about was conservation funding, but we kind of end up having a few different sidebar conversations, which were pretty entertaining and informative, and hopefully thought-provoking for those of you out there that are listening, and motivational, or whatever the heck the term is you'd like to use. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it gets me thinking, it gets me motivated to be more involved, or to make the right decisions when I'm purchasing something, and understanding where and how those funds for my purchase might be helping or may not be helping if I'm not spending it in the right places. So a lot of this conversation is revolved around an article that was in the Bugle magazine, which is RMEF's bi-monthly publication, from their May and June edition. There was an article called Leaks in the System that really caught my eye, and I ended up reading it and rereading it, and it's just super informative. I'm super glad there's somebody looking at this and talking about it, and I think it's important for everyone out there listening that is, if you're listening to this, you're probably someone who is just as passionate as I am about this, about the outdoors and hunting and fishing and future opportunities. So it's very important you understand the way that our system is funded to continue conserving and to continue taking care of our wildlife and our wild places. It's super important that everybody understands how much of a key piece we are to that puzzle. And without us, us being the individuals that are out there participating and buying licenses and purchasing equipment, without us, they can't do. They being our wildlife managers cannot do their jobs. So it's super important. So hopefully you take the time to read that article. I'm going to post it. I may try to post it somehow on Instagram. I don't know how the hell I'll do that, but I'll definitely post it on Facebook and post it on our website. I'll work with Danny to get it put up on there. But super informative, very eye-opening to me, and definitely something that I want to just try to get the word out there as much as I can on this stuff, so that everybody understands how what we are so passionate about, how that is funded. Because without those funds, like I said, they can't continue to maintain and improve for our future generations. So very hopefully a fun, informative conversation coming your way. And we want to continue to bring you that information and this sort of content as we head into the fall. I've got a long list of folks that I'm going to talk to over the next month or two. And then once we get into the fall, we'll be hunkering down and putting out some weekly episodes on, people with their success stories from the previous week. We've really enjoyed doing that the last 2 seasons here in New York, being deer season last fall and turkey season this spring. It's been super fun engaging with everyone and watching our community grow. It's pretty empowering and pretty exciting to just see other people getting excited about the same things and getting involved in the system. So let's keep this thing rolling. If you are new to this podcast and new to us, the guys here at Pertnear Outdoors, we are just regular Joes. We have regular jobs, and this is by far not our income. We're not sponsored. We don't have any interests of that. Now, if somebody approached us and said, "Hey, you guys are using X, and we would love to work with you," that's a decision we'll make at that point if there's any opportunity that ever comes that way. But right now, we're actually trying to continue to have everybody using different things, and we all have our interests and our different brands and different types of equipment, different ways of mobile hunting, all that sort of stuff. That's one of the unique things I think we bring to the table is we all have different ideas and different preferences, and we can hopefully speak to different things if people have questions or if we do episodes on gear and things like that. So along those same lines, if you are new to the podcast, we're all from New York. We do most of our hunting here in New York. We go to Pennsylvania once a year, do a little hunting down there in the mountains for deer. We get up to the Adirondacks at least once a year. Jimmy gets up there quite a bit because his in-laws live right outside the park. So we do quite a bit of hunting up there as a group over time. And we get out to Colorado every once in a while and hopefully venture to some other western states in the future. But that's kind of, it's who we are. Our focus is here at home in New York, and we want to continue to highlight what we have going on locally here around us. And we think we have some great hunting. We have some great opportunity. We have some awesome public land around our, especially in the Finger Lakes area, out here in western New York, Buffalo area. It's a little bit tough up around, Wyoming County and Erie County. There's not really much opportunity at all when it comes to public land, but when you head over into the Finger Lakes, which is the area that I grew up in and where our family camp is, we do quite a bit of hunting out that way and been venturing around the public lands out there, and think it's a little not talked about enough, the value of some of that land that we have and the opportunities that lie there. So very motivated to continue to engage with everyone out there, the new hunters. We've got a large group of people, that have gotten their hunting licenses this year, good, bad, or indifferent because of COVID, with New York State doing their online or their hunter safety program and their archery program online. There's a bunch of new people out there. So I hope we can be a resource to you. If there's information you would like, or if you're somebody new, reach out to us. I've been around hunting my entire life. My brother is a pretty successful hunter. A lot of guys in our group, my in-laws, the Kirsches, they're very successful hunters. So we are a resource here. We want to be that, and we want to engage with you and help answer your questions and help you have success come fall and spring. So that's what us here at Pertnear Outdoors are all about. And thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to me babble. And I really hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. It was a fun one. And the first 6.5 minutes, the audio was kind of crappy from Trey. We had some kind of an issue with his recording device. So after that, both of our audios are pretty solid. So bear with us for that first 6.5 minutes. But after that, it should be loud and clear and entertaining. So thanks again for joining. Enjoy your week. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. And keep feeding them. All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Log Talk Podcast with Pertnear Outdoors. And this week we are joined by a fella from the Deep South Mr. Trey Bowman of Tomorrow's Hunter. Thanks for joining us today, Trey.
Really, I appreciate it, dude. Appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I am in the deep south of Mississippi. I live, if anyone is college football fans, Mississippi State University. I live about 20 miles west of Mississippi State University. So Hell State.
Hell State. Well, you guys must be going stir crazy down there right now without the football's not looking good for the fall for college,
No,
is it?
It's not looking good. And, we're SEC fans, and we kind of pride ourselves in being in the SEC that, man, football is everything. But I will back it up a little bit. Mississippi State University is a huge baseball program, too. So this coronavirus, hammered us down where we have at the stadium there in Starkville where Mississippi State plays. They just remodeled it a couple of years ago, and they spent about $60 million on it, and it is the hands down the best college baseball stadium in the country. You look at, they probably average anywhere from 10 to 12,000 people at, on a weekend series.
That's crazy.
A night, and it's unbelievable. It's been called the Carnegie Hall of college baseball. So we already took a hit here, and pretty much, and Ole Miss is here too, and they're a big baseball program, big baseball school too. People love. Billy, in Mississippi, there's not much to do outside of college sports and hunting. There's not much else for us to do down here, when you're looking at a state with less than 3 million people in it.
Wow,
we all know each other.
That's the population of Mississippi?
Yeah, we're less than 3 million. Look, Mississippi is not a state, it's a club. If you start talking to everybody, you're going to come back where everybody knows everybody to some extent. It's unbelievable.
That's
really
wild.
Is.
That's wild.
Yeah.
We have more,
city,
if it makes you feel better, we have more cows than people in Wyoming County. So they have that up there. You come out here, it's where I live, there's literally more cows than people. So
well, our biggest cities in Mississippi are Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana. That's our biggest cities in Mississippi. Yeah. It really is. Everybody kind of lives around where we do have some population. Everybody kind of lives around those cities.
Yeah. God. So this whole thing that's going on with the coronavirus has got to be pretty wild then with a population of that size. How has it hit your state that hard? I haven't even heard anybody talk about Mississippi.
Well, we did pretty well. There's a joke in Mississippi that we're always the last to get everything. And so initially when this happened, our numbers were slow. But now actually the last few weeks, we have been just seeing unbelievable. Again, we're looking, I haven't checked today and I haven't checked in a while because I've got some corona fatigue a little bit. Yeah. But I know for 2 days there, we were, 1,500 cases statewide, which it don't sound like a ton, but you're talking about less than 3 million people too. Yeah. So on average, that's a lot of people. And we did the shutdown earlier. Our governor, he's a conservative. He's a less government type guy, but I think we're probably reaching a point where he's probably going to pull the trigger on something again. He's shutting down. He's doing it county by county. So some counties are a lot more severe than others. And my county, I live in a very, very tiny county. There's only 8,000 of us in our whole county. So it's a very tiny county. So we've kind of been able to, just handle our own business. Everybody's kind of smart with it. Again, everybody knows everybody here. And, we've had 4 people in our county die from this. And again, we know every one of them, right? And so I'm kind of torn. I don't know how y'all are with it. I'm kind of torn as I don't know where this falls, where the hype is and all that, because at the end of the day, I look back and go, because I read people say, well, the flu kills people. I've never known anyone die from the flu.
Yeah, I have.
And now I know 4 people that die from with coronavirus. Let's say it that way. Right. So I don't know where this is. I know, hey, I have a 10-month-old baby. I don't want to be sick with anything and leave my wife to have to deal with him, or my wife gets sick and I have to deal with him. So we're if they call for us to wear a mask, we wear a mask. If we wash our hands, we take precaution because it's not that big. It's not that hard to do, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's been the crazy part about living in New York. Obviously, we're the hardest hit state in the country right now, and one of the hardest hit places in the world. But that's 350 miles from here, and counties and counties and counties away. We're not, we haven't experienced that really at all in the upstate New York area. It's been all the downstate, the city, that has been hit with this whole thing. So it's definitely been very interesting because you've got a lot of different people, a lot of different ideas, and the longer this goes on, the more everybody's getting pretty uneasy about things. And I think we're all just ready for it to get over. And like right now, we're trying to figure out how to get back to school in the fall, and that's a crazy thing because all the schools are trying to come up with their plans, and it's like everybody's got an idea, but there's always a counter idea as to why that's not it's back and forth and back and forth. So I feel for everybody who's in a position that has to make decisions that affects the greater good of hundreds or thousands or a million people. Like, I wouldn't want to be in that seat right now. Somebody's got to make a decision because it just keeps going and going and going until somebody does. But yeah,
no, you're exactly right. And I have a feeling some of this will change after November the 5th a little bit. After election, it'll probably change some. I don't know to what degree, and I don't want to be the tinfoil hat guy by no means, but I do have a feeling that we may have a different rhetoric on the coronavirus after the 5th of November.
Yeah, as we will with everything. And we're
exactly right.
Young. I was just listening to something on the way home, and guys were talking about how if you've talked to your parents, your grandparents, they've been around this world for a long time, in this country for a long time, and it seems like there's always some big crazy thing going on that you can't wrap your head around. There's been anything worse, and how could it get worse? And then there's something else that pops up. So it's pretty easy to get yourself down in the dumps right now and think that, how the hell are we going to come out of this, and how can we all come together? But, that was my hope, this whole coronavirus. When this all started, and it was all so crazy, I was really hoping it was going to be an opportunity for us all as a country to come together behind one unified thing that we were trying to beat, just like it was with 9/11. But it didn't take long for that to unravel, did it?
No, it did not. That may be a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah, it sure is. And there's a lot of people talking about it, and it's I like listening to that side of things because you got to keep your mind open and your eyes open to what's going on. Because if all you do is sit and read, my wife and I have talked about it because she has one subset of people and channels that she listens to on her social media, and I have a completely different channel, and we're both seeing and hearing different things. So it's very interesting to sit down and talk about that stuff with her because we're both looking at different things with different opinions. So yeah, you got to look at everything right now. That's what it comes down to.
No, you're right. You're right.
So we're not talking at all about hunting right now, but that's good stuff. No, it's good. I think you gotta talk about that. That's just like like instead of asking how the weather is, it's the weather and then it's coronavirus. Those are the two things to get to know somebody on right now. And football.
Well, we covered weather off.
We did
off air
prior to hitting record.
Yeah.
So we got that
hit them all.
Way. We talked a little bit of football. Yeah, and baseball started last night, so I'm a big baseball fan. So I'm excited to have that back. And my Atlanta Braves are playing today, the first game, so I'm pretty excited to watch them on TV.
So tell me how a guy from Buffalo, New York, is a Braves fan.
There is a lot of Braves fans around this country because of TBS Sports. Back when us, I think. How old are you? Are you about 30?
34.
34. So you're older than I am. But, growing up, TBS, I mean, that was on every cable station around the country. And the Braves were on every night. And that was when I was starting to play baseball, and I was getting interested in it. And I can remember that was like around the mid-'90s when they were playing in the World Series. And, it was either the Yankees up here in New York. It's either the Yankees, the Braves, or the Mets. And I grew up hating the Yankees and hating the Mets, and I fell in love with the Braves. So... yeah.
Well, I'm a Cubs fan pretty much because of the same thing, but there's one caveat in there. Everybody was Braves fans, so I had to find another team to root for. And every day I came home from school when I was a little kid, and they were terrible. I mean, they were awful. But they were on every single day on WGN.
Yep.
And Harry Carey. and I fell in love with Harry Carey, and just always loved the Cubs and you know, the lovable losers, and kind of, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited for any kind of sports to come back. I'm a baseball guy too. I mean, I played baseball all through high school, and I played in college, and
Did you?
and I love baseball. I mean, still here I help coach our high school team a little bit here too. Love it. I mean, I'm so excited for it to be back. Couldn't come back at a better time, honestly.
Yeah, no doubt. That's funny, man. Like almost so many people I talk to that either have that have podcasts and are like always trying to do something else. Seems like guys that are into hunting and into podcasting in our age range, almost all of them played sports and even got into college sports at some point. I was talking about that with the guys from Antler Up the other day, that it's like, it's just funny how so many of us we're almost exactly the same person, which is kind of creepy, but you know, it's interesting.
Well, I think it's the competitive side of it too. I mean, I know we've talked before, and I know you're in sales. I'm in sales. I mean, that the competitive side of it just keeps us going. And hunting is, you know, I know we've had. I don't know if y'all don't have the Quest Nation, the whitetail deer hunting tournament. It's not in New York yet, but we've had them on our show, and we've talked. And it's a whitetail hunting tournament, and it's like a bass fishing tournament. You get two buddies and all. It's super cool. We had them, and he talked about it, and it's kind of clicked with me. He's like, yeah, everybody's competing. You know, in your deer camps, you're competing against your buddies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just a competition.
You're full of shit, because you know, my brother and I, we compete with each other pretty fiercely, and I was never a competitor until the last few years, and now so we compete with quantity of deer. So you know, it's the Great American Harvey Whitetail Challenge or Championship, whatever we call it. The name changes all the time, but we've talked about getting one of those big championship belts, and we pass it back and forth. But I've got 2 years in a row on him now. I've beat him, and he's due with his first child to be born in beginning of August, so like a week and a half from now. And I've been, you know, just jabbing him like, dude, I got you. I'm gonna get a 3-peat this year because your life's gonna change, buddy. I'm like, I turned it on when my first child was born. You're gonna have to tone it back, you know. So it's pretty funny. That's the fun part about the whole hunting culture, and I think you hit it right there, is that we're all competitive people, and that it's something to apply yourself once you get out of that age range where you can be out playing baseball on Sundays and skinning your knees and pulling muscles. You can't be doing that when you got stuff to take care of Monday through Friday. So
no, you're right.
So I wanted to get you on here. So I guess a little background on you and what you guys are all about. So you and I connected back in the fall, and I think you were just getting your podcast off the ground. And I really have no idea how we connected, but you had shot me over a message, and I think I might have found you somehow, maybe it might have been through John with Whitetail 101.
Yeah.
You would have
probably,
him on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I listened to your first episode, and you and it's Eli, right? You two. So you guys were talking. Your first episode was a lot about conservation, funding, how our hunter numbers have gone down, and what we need to do as tomorrow's hunter to help, rejuvenate that and understand our part in conservation. So, you guys have a great podcast. You do a lot of good things with that. Your entertainment level is always fun. I enjoy nothing better than a couple intelligent Southern guys talking about stuff. It just makes us Northerners so happy. And, so it's really enjoyable. I listened the other night when I was grocery shopping to the one with you guys and Casey. And and just being that you guys know each other, you can't get anything better than some friends that are constantly throwing jabs at each other. And I think talking about, was it you that missed the big buck?
Yeah.
And you were giving Eli the shit because you're like, yeah, well, you got to see a 200 incher to know what it's like to go after 200 inches. So I encourage everybody to head over and check out your guys' channel, and you guys are doing some cool stuff with, I think, Carbon TV as well.
Yeah, Carbon.
So if people have Carbon TV on their phones or TV or their smart TVs or anything like that, you can look these guys up on there. They have their shows, their live their podcasts are posted up on there with the video. So it's cool stuff. So definitely encourage everybody to check you guys out. But I read an article actually while I was in the hospital with my wife when we were having our child in May, and I was reading the at that time the edition of RMEF, their Bugle magazine, and there was an article in there about that kind of caught my eye, and it was called "Leaks in the System," and it was talking about how online sales has really changed, and is kind of a scary thing moving forward about how people can buy products online, can be saving a lot of money, and not realizing that you might be doing a lot of harm to conservation funding. And so this article just automatically sparked my mind. I'm like, I want to talk about this on the podcast. I need to find somebody to get on to chat about it. So you guys came up right away. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit today with you, because it sounds like you guys have a great understanding of Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson, which are a couple of the kind of the pillars of funding for hunting and fishing in the outdoors and conservation. So I thought it'd be good for us to have a conversation around that, and then kind of talk a little bit about what this article had to talk about. So I just kind of ran my mouth for a while there, but what do you got?
Well, first, I appreciate you pointing everybody to our show. And I want to do, before we get into that, I do want to do a little background of Eli is my brother-in-law. And when we started this podcast, which I guess I've been married to my wife now 8 years. I've known Eli, I guess, for about 12 years now. So we come from completely different, when you talk about politics, we come from a completely different background. I come from a background, I was very, I guess, like lower middle class upbringing. My dad was the game warden in our county. My mom worked a receptionist at the local phone company. You know, we wasn't poor. We had what we needed, right? But in that, we didn't talk about politics. And I'm not saying every class, every social class has of that raising, you know, doesn't talk about politics. My family didn't talk about politics. That was something that was above us, that we had no business being in it or anything like that. So I went to college and I met my wife, and her dad, which is Eli's brother, her dad had been in politics his whole life. And when I first found that out, I was just like, oh, shit. I was just scared. You know, I was scared to death because I've had these people on pedestals, right? And when I met him, he is the biggest redneck from South Mississippi you've ever seen in my life. He spent 30 years in state government here in Mississippi and rose in the ranks, and he actually just retired 2 weeks ago from commissioner. He got appointed by the governor 4 years ago, commissioner DOR, and which is Department of Revenue in the state of Mississippi. Huge appointment. But again, the biggest redneck you've ever seen. So go back when I meet and figure this guy out. Like, man, this guy's just like me. We're hunting, we're fishing, we're doing everything. He's saying the same thing. He sounds like me. Like, politics is for people like that. That's who's supposed to be in it. And that's what got me involved. Like, I slowly started to want to be involved in the political process, because now I realize, hey, this isn't the elite. This is, you know, everyday people making differences in your state, in your communities, whatever. But Eli grew up on on the other side of that, growing up in a political household where he thought everybody knew about politics and everybody knew about all this stuff. And through the years, and that's what made us want to do the podcast. That's one of the reasons made us want to do the podcast, is to go, hey, these are two stark opinions, right? He grew up in a household where everyone thought that he thought everyone knew about politics, and I grew up not knowing a thing about it. And that's something we need to talk about, maybe to encourage people to get involved, because it doesn't have to be partisan.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can be Democrat, you can be Republican, it doesn't matter when we're talking about hunting issues. And that's what we talk about. We keep it down the middle. We don't talk about candidates. We talk about hunting issues and things like that. And so that's what kind of led us into doing that first episode that you heard. Hey, this is what we're going to be. Now, we talk about different things too, but this is what we want to talk about at the time, the decline of the hunting numbers. And that's what we dove into. And my research had the hunting industry is about $55 billion industry. And we did a show last night with Jim Levitor with the Outdoor Channel, the CEO of Outdoor Channel, and he said $74 billion. So I'm going to go with his research a little bit
great.
more. It sounds really good. But he even stressed, hey, we had, with the coronavirus, I know we saw articles come out, hey, the hunting industry, people are getting back in, hunting and everything, but it's still, we've fallen so far from that even this little uptick, it's not going to get us back to where we're going.
Right.
And then we start looking at things like the Pittman-Robertson, and which I will say this, we had something great for public land yesterday, or this week. I don't know if it was yesterday or day before.
Wednesday.
The Great American Outdoor Act that was passed. $9.5 billion is going to go into public lands, and this is great. I mean, we're just waiting the president's signature, and I don't think that he's not going to sign that, right? But so that's great. But when we looked at how, one thing that we've talked about, and we talked about on a couple different times with the Pittman-Robertson Act and how that kind of works. And if you're unfamiliar with it, it's an excise tax on ammunition and hunting stuff. So it's a lot like the Dingell-Johnson. Dingell-Johnson has the excise tax on fishing, and it goes back to conservation efforts that supports what we do. And what I love about the Pittman-Robertson Act, and I've always loved about the Pittman-Robertson Act, if you go back to when it was when it was enacted, I mean, we were at a state in which it's unbelievable to even think about the amount of game that we had in this country, and how, where I live, there were elk where I live, right? They migrated down from the Appalachians down to the coast of Mississippi, and there was black bears. That's stuff that we're getting black bear back, but like we don't have that now. And it's unbelievable to me to think about, man, we killed that off.
Yeah, right.
It's like, how in the world could we even do that? Is it even possible? I mean, I literally get tired of cleaning deer, golly, I don't shoot deer sometimes because I'm like, man, I don't want to go clean that thing.
I know.
I'm real
got stuff
lazy.
to do this week, yeah.
Yeah, I'm real lazy sometimes. But what's amazing to me about the Pittman-Robertson Act was that it wasn't, it's a law that was passed, but it was everyday hunters and conservationists at the time, and it was business leaders that got behind this and got government to act on it, right? The government didn't fix this problem. They were just kind of they made it happen by putting it into law. That's always, to me, that shows why even, and again, this is why we wanted to do the podcast. At that time, hunters and conservationists were such a united front and such a force in that they made Washington, D.C. act, and that's always stood out to me from, like, okay, if we can bring that back together, and if we can do that again, and now we're talking about, we did this in the 30s, right? When we didn't have social media. I mean, these are people phone calls and letters and
a lot of
ads
work had to
and
go into that. Yeah,
a lot of work. Now, I mean, I say it on our podcast all the time. Everybody has influence. It doesn't matter if you host a podcast, if you have a TV show or whatever. If you're just, if you don't even have social media, whatever, everybody can influence somebody. Mm-hmm. So if we could just start, I mean, the Pittman-Robertson, first and foremost, is, to me, one of the most groundbreaking grassroots efforts that we've had in conservation, and it's done great things. It truly has. But there's one thing missing from it that that's not talked about as much, and that is all this money, where it goes to, and it's going to conservation, but it's not going to. You can't use that money to market. We can't go out and market to new hunters with that money. Now, Dingell-Johnson, you can. There was, I think it was amended. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was some kind of amendment done, or maybe there was language in legislation from the beginning that had that. I'm not sure, but they done. If you look at what fishing has done since 2011, There was a poll done 2011, 2016. There was almost 2.7 million new fishermen.
Wow.
You know, and I get it. Fishing is a lot easier than hunting. I mean, when you look at hunting, and it sometimes, and especially in the world we live in with the vilification of the firearm, and stuff like that, is kind of intimidating. It's not like going to play golf, or it's not like going to fishing. I mean, you can go buy in Mississippi. We call them brim. You go buy you some crickets and get you a bobber, and you know you can go. You find a treetop leaned over. You got your whole day.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You're made.
Right.
So I get it. It's different, but I think we have some smart people that administrate this money. We have some smart people that are leading this industry. I think if we could take some of that money and if we could advertise to new hunters, and I think you're seeing a big movement in the knowing where your food comes from, that field to plate movement. I think if we could take some of that money and make a real effort, we would see drastic numbers, I mean drastic changes in our numbers, and we would come back to it. So I just talked for a very long time, Billy. I'm sorry for that.
No, you and I talked about that the other day, that if that's like a new dialogue, and I heard you, I think you were on with, it might have been with Jules McQueen. You guys were talking about that, and you brought the same thing up there. So it's like getting influential people thinking that way. It's very important to make change and get stuff going in that direction. So pause there. Pause there for 1 second. I got to take a leak. I drank
you're
32
good.
ounces of water before I came on. Stupid. How about that? That was quick, right?
That was good.
Sneaky
that was good.
fast. Yeah.
Solid flow too. By the way, I could hear
you
it.
could hear it?
Yeah, I could hear
you
it.
Really?
Yeah, solid flow.
That's fantastic. I was pushing hard, man. I had to get that out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that is funny.
No.
So what I wanted to hit on something, because I haven't heard a ton of podcasts. There was a big push like 2-3 years ago when I really started listening to podcasts, and you had Meat Eater was kind of coming up, and Wired to Hunt was becoming way more mainstream. There was a lot of talk about like our conservation model here in this country, how it works, and Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson, all that sort of stuff. But I think that has it was almost like it was talked about a lot, and then it was, it's like one of those things where you have a podcast where you talk about something, you don't really want to come back to that well every 6 months. So there's a ton of new hunters out there and new anglers and just new people into the outdoors, especially, from in New York. They made the hunter safety course. You could never take it online. It was you had to do it in person, and with the whole virus situation, they made it back in April before our May turkey opener. They made it so you could take it online, and they just did the same thing for archery. So we have this influx of new hunters. 20,000+ people have taken those courses right now, which is great for us here in New York. But a lot of folks who, hopefully some of them are listening to this conversation, they may not understand how important we are as participants in the outdoors, how our purchases and how the way we spend money, and even to something as simple as buying your license, you are helping to fund what's going on in your state and what's going on across the country. So, we have a model of conservation here in our country called the North American model of wildlife management. And that essentially is, the funding to do that management comes, for the majority of that, comes from these excise taxes and from license sales. Now, different states have a few different things where they might have, I think Colorado and Arizona both have their lotteries. They have a portion of that that goes into the conservation fund. And there's also, I think I read in this article, there was another state, I think Missouri might have like it's 0.001% of every dollar. There's a tax that goes into that, and they're raising just gigantic dollars in that fundraising. But most folks, when you're going, and that's what this article was about, and it's something that people need to realize, is that when you go, and I didn't know this really until I started looking into this more, is that if you buy a product online and it is $30 cheaper, you're buying it on Amazon or on eBay or some, Alibaba or one of these sites that's out there, you might be able to buy that fishing reel for $30 less than you can buy it at Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops. But there's a reason why, and what the reason is that they're circumventing the system, and those manufacturers overseas are selling direct to consumer, not through a channel of a distributor or an importer, which has to pay that excise tax if it's not an American made good. And you're just bypassing that whole system. So that 11% of that purchase that you made, there is no 11% excise tax. It's going right through the system, right through the sieve. And that, let's say it's a $100 reel, that $11 that would have been there is not there. That's not going to conservation. So it's just, that was probably the overlying big picture thing that everybody should be thinking about from this article. And I scanned the article and I'll post it up on our website so people can go there and read it if they'd like to learn a little more about that whole side of the discussion. But, that right now more than ever, there's a big push in my mindset to buy American, to buy local, or buy from an American company that's on the ground here, that even if it is an imported good, that you are putting those dollars back into conservation with your purchase. So.
No, I mean you're 100% correct. I mean, and I've done it. I mean,
we all have, yeah.
Bought stuff and be like, man, well, it's so much cheaper. I don't have to go anywhere, and it comes right to the house. But in the big picture of everything, I do, especially probably the last 5 years, I've tried to make a concerted effort, and I'm not like a gearhead. And me and Eli actually talked about this the other day when we were shooting our bows. Like, man, my bow's like 8 years old, and I've never even thought about buying a new one. But I've found myself over like the last 5 years to really, really try to take my dollars and spend it with American-made products manufactured here by people that really do try to support, conservation. They're not just, hey, I mean, there's lots of companies out there that got into space because it's a $74 billion space, right? Yeah. And they're trying to get their share of it, and they don't really care about what we're doing. But there's companies and there's pillars in this industry that are, I mean, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're really trying to leave the hunting industry better than they found it. And that's when, if you find companies like that, I mean, we have one right down the road here, Mossy Oak. And, I of course, I have some Realtree stuff, but most of the stuff that you're going to find us wearing is Mossy Oak stuff because, I mean, they're 30 miles down the road here. They're a local company, but those people, they truly, truly believe, and they're living out what they're selling you. Mm-hmm. And there's multiple companies like that across the board. And if we spend our dollars that way, we bring our money. I guess the cool buzzword now is bring our money back home. Mm-hmm. You're going to see that because of Pittman Robertson and excise taxes, you're going to see just conservation flurry. And now, I mean, with the Great American Outdoor Act passing, I mean, now you have that is a huge message sent to. From Capitol Hill, sent to America and hunters, as a whole, that hey, we're with you, we hear you, So I think we can bring your dollars back, spend on American made, spend on companies that are supporting what you want to do, vote for people that align with you on the outdoor issues and where you are with. And things, and with your family, whatever. If we start doing that, we're going to see as a hunting community us be able to control the narrative on some things. I really believe that.
Yeah, and if you don't understand, and this goes to your politics point too. If you're not involved in it, it's going to get involved in you. Like if you're not out there mm-hmm. participating, if you're not helping in whatever facet that you can, whether that's with your time, with your finances, with the decisions that you're making of things to get involved in or where to buy something. If you're not participating in that and you're just saying, well, somebody else will take care of it, that's not a place I want to be, because I want to make sure that, that I'm doing everything I can, just like you said, some of those companies that want to leave it better than you found it. That's where I want. I want to leave this better than I found it, for my kids, just as my parents and my family did for me. I feel like they've given me more opportunities. I want to do the same thing as we pass it along. And
absolutely.
I think I hope people understand, as we talk about Buy American, and it was funny because I was busting my buddy Brian's nuts before I got on the phone with you, because I was talking to him earlier, and he bought, what the hell did he buy? He just bought something online, and I was like, oh, he bought a crossbow on eBay. And I'm like, gee, there you go, classic you. I'm like, you have any idea how much money you just took out of conservation's hand? And he's like, F you. He's like swearing at me and everything. And we're just giving it back and forth to each other. And then he's texting me a few minutes later. He goes, just so you know, he bought it on eBay. Just so you know, I looked into it. He goes, I bought it from a bow shop it's coming from Missouri, from a bow shop, but it got his head turning. And until I knew about funding of conservation and Pertnear Robertson and, fishing, it's funny. I still don't think a whole lot about Dingle Johnson. Pertnear Robertson is in the back of my mind much more than that. But until I was aware of it, I had no idea and had no clue. You see a conservation officer out there, you see a project going on with a trailhead, with them making a parking lot or fixing a stream. Like, those funds come from this sort of stuff.
Yep.
From these funds, and that's how conservation is paid for, but had zero idea about it. And it's very interesting that it really is not. That's an educational piece out there that I think it's, that whether that's our duty as podcast people to make sure we bring that up and we educate about it, but also, like, how come that's not, I don't remember that being part of my education in school or part of my education in the hunter safety program, like knowing how did we get here and why is it so important that we do this? I mean, you talked about, when they implemented this, the North American model of conservation, when they implemented that, like you talked about, I mean, that was on the back end of a major issue where we had killed off all the buffalo and the elk were killed out. I mean, wild turkeys were basically gone. It's like we did all that damage, and now we've done all this to bring it back. The hunters and the outdoorsmen and the passionate people have done that themselves. This wasn't something that the government dictated upon us. So it's very important for us and for the next generation moving forward that we explain this stuff and we bring it up every once in a while and talk about it. And if somebody in your deer camp or somebody that you're out fishing with and you're talking and you're thinking about this stuff, that you're communicating how it is that this came to be. How did we get to have the deer populations and the turkey populations that we have now? Our fathers didn't have that. It wasn't this way back when they were our age. So it's super important to talk about this stuff and get it out there and understand it.
And to your point, I think it's not only our responsibility as podcast hosts, it's everybody, it's your listeners, my listeners, everyone's responsibility to tell the story, because we have such a great story when it comes to conservation. Where else in this world do you have, I mean, especially where we live, we don't get a lot of anti-hunter people. We don't run into that at all. I mean, I make the joke, and it's not really a joke, it's really true all the time, that people in Mississippi that are non-hunters, they still go hunting 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah. I mean, that's just how it is here. Everybody, I mean, that's part of Mississippi's heritage is hunting.
Right.
And but we have this great story, this success story of, man, we came in and for all the reasons, we killed out most of our game. But we enacted this, and together, states, governments, private individuals united and created, I mean, some of the best populated games that on the planet.
Yeah.
That is a super success story. We should not be ashamed. We should be running to every microphone, every television camera, whatever, and telling every deer camp we should be talking about this. And in telling people how great, because this is 100% success story, and it's done, and it was only done. I mean, the big portion of this was done by just average dudes.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we don't talk about it. It blows my mind sometimes.
Well, because we're in an echo chamber in a way, like John with Whitetail 101, him and I talk quite a bit. We've gotten pretty close. And one of his big challenges is that everybody in his circle, like he's trying to grow he's created an awesome program. He has
Absolutely.
great content. And now I'm going to get him back on here in the next week or so because he's redoing some things and he's learned a lot over the last 6-8 months trying to do what he's doing. So he's kind of going at a different approach. But one of the biggest challenges that we all have in this part of our lives, in our outdoor passions, is that we basically have surrounded ourselves in our, once you get to the point where you're outside of high school and college, you start to create a nucleus of people that you all have the same interests. You hunt, I hunt. That's how we found out about each other. Other than that, we never would have been sitting here. So you're talking and you're interacting with the same group of people. It's trying to figure out a way to get that message out to, people that love to hike and trail run and go canoeing and boating and that love the outdoors, but they don't think at all about, I love seeing bears, and I love seeing eagles and deer, and I love catching all the trout that are in this stream. Like a lot of folks just don't understand the bigger picture of that. So it's trying to figure out a way to reach out, because I know the listeners of my podcast, there are people that I've come across that have found us and they're into hunting. There's a few new hunters that I know that are listening to our podcast, and they're growing their knowledge with the stuff that we do talk about on here. But it's getting those people totally outside of our world and encouraging them, to why it's important to be part of this. Even if you just simply go buy your hunting license and go hunting 2 days a year because you like to take pictures of animals, like you don't understand. It's important to get them to understand how those dollars they spend do go back into supporting what they love, if that makes sense.
No, you're right. In hunting now, and especially you watch TV. I mean, I try to put like the new hunter hat on, right? Like, okay, if I was going to try to learn hunting, where would I go? Of course, the internet, but I'd watch videos, stuff like that. So when you see success, you've harvested an animal. That's a successful hunt. No, well, when you're talking about supporting what you love and supporting conservation, success is when you buy a license, because now, hey, you're putting money in the coffer. Success is when you purchase your equipment, because Pittman Robinson is putting money back in the coffers. That's success. Like, it's, to me, I love all of that. And I mean, and I think about it when I buy a license. I haven't duck hunted, and I grew up a big duck hunter, and that's big here in Mississippi. I haven't been duck hunting in a while, but I buy stamps because I haven't hunted in 4 years, but I buy my stamps because, hey, that's money going into the system, right? So you don't, if you truly, and I know there's killers, people that just want to go kill, they don't care about anything. That's not the people we're talking to. You're going to have that everywhere. We have that, rampant in our state. But people like us and people that are probably listening to your show, listens to our show, they're wanting more out of it. They're wanting to do more. And dude, success is being a part of it, because you're helping, you're furthering this sport along just by participating. And that's the biggest thing. Just participate, get out. You eventually kill something.
Yeah. Yeah, and what and that can be mentoring a hunter, that can be convincing a friend. I mean, I'm really excited. I got 2 or 3. I have like 3 people around me that are like very new hunters, and then I've got one buddy who I've been really twisting for a few years, trying to get him to get into hunting, because I miss him, because we were best friends in high school and we live in an hour apart, and one of the only things that always brings us back together is fishing, and I really think he'd like hunting. And he's now because of all this and taking it online, he's taking his hunter safety course and his archery too. So like, I'm super excited because I'm seeing people around me that are getting into it. And I don't know if some of that's because of how active I've become with showing all this stuff with our platform. Hopefully maybe it is. But, it's really hard to mentor when it comes season, and that's kind of I was just thinking about this as you were talking, is that's one of the cool things about having a podcast or having some sort of video platform. If the people know you and the people learn to trust you, whether they know you personally or they just listen to you talk all the time, you can almost be mentoring somebody 12 months out of the year. It doesn't have to be, okay, we only get out and hunt 2 days, or 2 mornings. it's like you're talking directly to that person sometimes for a couple hours a week. If your podcast is a weekly thing, whatever, you're making that contact. So, it's, if I'm somebody's listening to this and you're a new hunter or you want to get into hunting, you're interested in this, you got to understand that most of us hunters, we really want to share our knowledge. We're very passionate about what we do. And so whether it's, whether it is Trey or it's me or it's anybody else around you, say, hey, I'm interested in hunting. Can you help me get started? I don't know any hunters around me that are going to say no, unless you're a real peckerwood and we don't want you around. Like, it's going to be, yeah, man, I'll help you out. I'll show you what to get. I'll tell you how to shoot a bow. Like, it's a community, and that's what you want to build. So, yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm all excited. I haven't really had this conversation on a podcast before, but this is stuff that gets me really excited because, getting people involved and seeing them happy and passionate about something that I'm passionate about too doesn't get any better than that.
No, you're right. And I think if you look at hunting is it's a very barbaric, it's a very macho sport, right? I mean, you go out in the woods, you spend hours, if not all day, and we're talking deer hunting, out in the woods. You take a life, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you have a successful harvest, you have killed something. And a lot of people, that turns a lot of people off, and I get it. A lot of people, I think, to new hunters, sometimes if you look at Facebook groups, I'm a member of all kind of Facebook groups just to keep, and there's some dicks out there, right? That, a new hunter jump in there and ask a question, they just berate him, so, okay, if he's going to do that, okay, he's a little unsure about a question, he or she throws it out in a Facebook group. If that's what he gets, you think he's going to walk up to you or she's going to walk up to you and ask for your help? No, that's not going to happen. Right. So I know one thing that I've tried to do with the Facebook bullying thing, like I'll see people posting there and I'll try to private message them. Like, hey, if you got a question, send me a message, nothing stupid or anything. And I've had pretty good response with people doing that. About equipment. And I'm not like I said, I'm not a gearhead. I'm not a big equipment guy, but I know that, hey, I've been hunting literally my entire life. I know more than he or she knows. So that's some things that I've tried to do is, get people out of that message room where they're just getting berated by just negativity where, hey, guys, look, you're hammering a new hunter that could bring dollars into our system. Let's not scare them off. Let's be positive. And stuff like that. So I think that's something everybody can do. It's simple. It doesn't get any simpler than that, and it's literally, I'm a member of probably 15 deer hunting groups, and it's probably daily. Somebody post in there and just go find them and just shoot them a message. Hey, if you got any questions, let me know. And it's worked for me, and I've had long conversations with people, or people just say, hey, I appreciate it. It's rough in these groups, but I'm trying to learn. Or I've never done. I've had one guy. He's like 50 years old, and he's never hunted before, but wanted to get into he wanted to get a crossbow, and I know nothing about a crossbow, but I was like, look, you can here's you some links. I found you some links. Go look. I know nothing about it. Yeah. I've tried to point them to John's program before. I don't know if that's been successful. Hey, literally. With John's program, you can't. He will teach you everything when it comes to it. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So I think that is a great way to reach people. Is just, on social media, start there if you're not comfortable doing, and just be nice. Yeah. Just be nice.
I know there could be a hell of a lot more of that in this world right now. A little more be nice.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's
what Jackie Moon say. Everybody love everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, man. Everybody love everybody.
What's my ring say?
Yeah.
Flint Tropics, Mega Bowl.
Yep. That's good stuff. Yeah, so is there anything I don't want to keep running around in circles on the whole Dingle Johnson and Pittman Robertson thing, but is there anything, we kind of got squirrel there a little bit on that. Is there anything else you'd want to hit on with that?
No, I think again, we could literally, you could get into that, forever. You go down a million different rabbit holes with it. And and just basically lose people. I mean, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, the biggest thing is, hey, spend your money, buy here. Your money's going to come back to you. I mean, you're investing into what you love. I mean, that's really the key to it right there.
And just to hit on excise taxes, this is one thing I didn't really understand, and I don't know what I heard it, but it kind of clarified it for me, is that we as consumers will never see that excise tax. That's not coming out of quote unquote our pockets. That's on the back end. That's from when the manufacturer is selling to the distributor or the retailer. That's when that 11% tax is happening. So you're not going to look at your receipt and say, oh, okay, there's the 11% that I paid. You don't see that. But just to give people an idea, since I'm looking at a little breakout that they got in this article, since 1937, it's been $22 billion have come from these excise taxes into conservation. So $22 billion, that's massive money. But since 2014, it's been $1 billion a year. So it kind of gives you an idea how much I think the spending has increased in this type of world that we're in. People are buying high-tech gear. There's a lot of stuff out there. So money has really started driving in this, but very quickly going the other way with the growth of online sales and everything else. There could be some negative stuff to be coming from that, as far as numbers dropping and people thinking about where they're spending the money. If they're not understanding that, we could be going backwards there pretty quickly. So even though it seems like we're headed in a great direction with the amount of dollars being spent and the taxes being raised, it could very quickly unravel. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit with the excise taxes and what type of dollars we were talking about.
Yeah, and I'll go on there, and I'll give you, it's 11% on long guns and ammunition, and it's 10% on handguns. So that goes, and that money is paid by the manufacturer. Now they're passing that along to us, which I'm perfectly fine with. But that money's collected by the Treasury, and then it's dispersed out into the states and National Park Service, all everywhere the conservation dollars go. So that's kind of how that flows and everything is. I mean, you're looking at 11-10% pretty much across the board, and collected and then dispersed out the way the United States Treasury sees it to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and all those favorite places that keep our money working for us.
Yep, in the places I want it working for me. I want it out there in the environment.
No, you're right.
So I'm curious, what conservation groups you guys belong to? I'm sure you guys are fairly active in some conservation organizations.
QDMA, we're QDMA. We're fired up about the new partnership too that they have. Let's see. Eli is a part of a bunch of them, which is he is really the conservationist of our group. With his job, he works at our coal mine here, and he is their he does kind of like the rehabilitation or rehabitat, the restoration on the coal mine. Yeah, so he's involved in the quail program, Quail Forever. We're NWTF. We're big supporters of NWTF. Both of us are. Help our local chapter out here. And Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl. That's kind of the big ones for us that we try to get involved with, and because it's really all those have local presence.
Yep.
And and a lot of them, especially like NWTF, NWTF is probably one of my favorite organizations. Which my favorite is deer hunting. I'm a whitetail deer guy, but we're probably more involved with NWTF just because their structure and how like the local banquet is set up, and the county keeps most of that money here, and then we turn around and we purchase we can buy food plot mixes and stuff like that and sell them at discount prices in our communities and stuff like that. So NWTF is probably our biggest one. But Eli does some really cool stuff out that coal mine. I mean, they went in, and the repopulation of quail is unbelievable what they're doing out there. And I wish he could be on, and kind of talk about, because he's benefiting from some of these dollars too.
That's cool.
Now, which North American Coal is also putting in a bunch of money, but they do joint ventures with some of these organizations, and the University of Mississippi State, they do joint ventures with them. And it's crazy. We talked about, we had Casey on, which Casey's one of my buddies, and he is probably one of the greatest deer hunters that you're ever going to see. Casey is a big benefit from that coal mine too.
Yeah.
With some of the deer that he's killed and some of the practices that they take out there is really, they grow some great deer out there on that property, and they've started hunting it, I guess, the last maybe 6 or 7 years out there. They let the employees hunt.
Is that
and everything?
So is he hunting, like, is that private land, or is it like owned by the coal mine and there's access to that?
Yeah, it's owned by the coal mine. So Casey, my buddy, they have neighboring property around it. Now what they do, they have a lottery out there on the mine with the guys that work at the mine. You have certain areas that you can go hunt, and they throw you a pop-up blind. And here, I don't know how New York rules are, but most people here are gun hunters. You know, it's too hot to friggin' bow hunt, and gun season opens in November. Yeah. So it runs to February. So most people gun hunt. So Eli's in charge. Basically, I mean, he does food plots and, you know, I mean, all mineral sites. He does all that good stuff on that mine, and he runs all the trail cam. They got trail camera pictures ever. I'm like, dude, you got the greatest job ever. Yeah, like awesome. What? All you do is freaking raise animals. You know.
Yeah. I'll tell you that buck would have been more impressive if it was another 2 inches wider. I'll tell you.
He has never told me that.
Laughing. That was so funny. Oh my god.
He has never told me that. Yep. And I tell you what, I don't even know if we talked about it on the show. I'm pretty sure I can get pretty close to where he killed that, because that whole summer, across the road from where he killed it, we would ride up on that power line, and I don't know if he talked about that or not either. And we would glass. There's in the middle of that mine, there's 25 acres that the guy would not sell, of just beautiful, just hardwood timber. And in last light, the deer would come out of that into that mine like freaking ants. And
out of that block of hardwood.
Yeah. And we watched that deer and 3 other deer that were, and one was. I mean, he wasn't the non-typical, but like a mainframe 10, I mean, and just had this mass that dropped down, and it was like the size of a basketball.
Oh my god!
A lot better deer, and he never saw that deer that whole year. But I mean, it's just it's unbelievable what a deer do when he puts some age on him. It really is, you know.
Are both of those bucks behind you? Are those both Mississippi bucks?
No.
I killed that up in Illinois, right?
I hunt in Illinois. We've been in a club up there for about it'd be my 7th, Eli's 6th year.
Okay.
So love it, dude. I mean, the Midwest it's everything that it's cracked up to be.
That's cool.
I don't know if you've ever hunted it.
No.
It'll spoil you. It absolutely spoil. Every year. It's about 6.5 hour drive one way for us.
That's not
and
bad.
Every year,
that's not bad at all.
It's not. We're in the southern tip of Illinois, and like I said, we're not far from. We're kind of north central in our state, so every year. But after that grind through November, you know, like we're thinking like, oh, we got to find something closer. But there's nothing like it. It's that rut is so much more intense, and I mean, it's unbelievable. It's not that there's places in our state that you can kill giant deer.
Mm-hmm.
You can, but it's not the same hunting. It's just not. And I'm ruined forever for hunting up there. I really am.
That's the problem. One of our buddies went out to Iowa this year, and it ruined him. He's like this. It wasn't even. He shot a gorgeous buck in Iowa, and then took a couple days off, went and bought his tag, went to Missouri, shot a beautiful buck in Missouri. He's like, it's just not that hard. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, not everybody can go out there and do it. He definitely, he's a good hunter. He definitely got lucky. I mean, you got to be in the right place at the right time, especially when the first time you ever been there. But it does sound, I started this year, this is the first year I bought a point for Iowa. So someday we'll go chase whitetails around Iowa. I'm pretty excited about that idea, but I want to check out Nebraska, like maybe go there for rifle season, maybe Dakotas or something. But yeah. So how'd you ever get into doing that in Illinois?
Well, we went, like I said earlier, Eli's dad, politician, and one Christmas we were sitting at home, and if you are your listeners ever heard of a place called Honey Break in Louisiana? It's 5-star, just duck hunting. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, just some of the best duck hunting on the planet, and just the amenities are unbelievable. So me and Eli sitting on the couch, and someone calls his daddy, and we hear him on the phone. No, I'm not interested. And he hangs up. So we're watching like something on the Outdoor Channel, and 3, 4, 5 minutes go by, and he goes, y'all ever heard of a place called Honeydew? And Eli goes, no. And a couple more minutes go by, he goes, hold up, you mean Honey Break? And he said, yeah, that's what I mean. It's over in Louisiana. He was like, yeah. And both of us like, yeah, we've heard of that. And he's like, well, such and such just called me and offered me a hunt. I don't want to go. And we said, shit, call them back. We want to go. So we go over there, and this was, I was probably like 26, 27, Eli like 21 maybe.
Yeah.
Like we're in our prime, right? So we go over there New Year's Eve through the 2nd is when we show up. So we show up, we're the youngest ones there by probably like 30 years. Like, and it's just, but you got to think it costs like $5,000 a gun, to go on this. I mean, I couldn't afford that. So we roll up in our beater vehicle. They valet us and everything, and like we're there to freaking party, right? And
like Duck Dynasty.
right. So we go in there and we have a freaking just slamming time. But I met the guy that owns our farm there.
Okay.
And we hit it off like New Year's Eve, like everybody's partying. He showed me pictures of his deer and everything, and I'm like, I want to come up. He's like, well, I got a spot open. I was like, I'm coming up. And I did. I went up there, looked at it. I mean, and our farm is unbelievable. I mean, it really is. What it is, Scott Millhauser, he owns our farm, and he's a very successful businessman in St. Louis. But he hunts like a poor person, so he lets poor people hunt with him. So that's like me and Eli and the local mailman and like just random people because he makes it affordable, right? Because we go up there, we work with him and everything else. So I mean, we do. He used to own an outfitter in Pike County. He sold it and bought this place in like 2001 and has been managing it for just quality deer.
Nice.
And we got him, man. I mean, we shoot. If he's you can shoot a 4-year-old 8-point if he's 130, or a 4-year-old 8-point period, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, he wants to shoot 150s and better, and we've done pretty well. And it's fun to me to be a part of that process too, because again, that's a whole nother stage of conservation. That's a whole nother stage of it, of being a part of it and working on the property.
Yeah.
But I lucked up into that, and I'll never. We show up, dude. He like I said, he moved everything from his outfitter down there. We got 180 stands on the property. Yeah, so you go up, you climb up 22-foot ladder stands. You climb up. There's a bow hanger in every stand and a safety harness. Right, you just tether off to it, and you're in. It's like hunting an outfitter. And every year we're like, why are we thinking about leaving this place?
Yeah, I know. Man, that sounds like you got a freaking. And it's just so funny how you just meet somebody at some other thing, and next thing you know, you're hunting in one of the most coveted places in the country.
Oh, it's great. And that story, and I cannot believe again he let us in this club, because when that night, again, we were 26, 27 years old, and if people that are their mid-30s now can think back on those times. You wasn't the most mature person.
No.
And yeah, in New Year's Eve we completely tied one on. We tied one on so bad, and they had these little villas at this. You had like the main house and all these bridges that were built up like 30 foot up in the air, and you had your own little villa. Well, we missed the wake-up call, and the lady that ran the place had to come in and actually shake us to wake us up. It was like, are y'all going to go hunting? And we're like, oh, yeah. We're just waiting for our alarms to go off. They're like, it's 7 o'clock. Sun's been up for 2 hours.
Jesus, yeah. We've all been there, buddy. My best friend Chris and I, we worked together at the last company I worked for, and man, we went on a couple trips, and we were young, like you said, mid-20s. You know, you're hanging out with guys that are all in their late 40s and 50s, and a hell of a lot more mature than we were, and we're just, you know, oh, free alcohol? Oh, okay. And just out of hand, you know. I'm so glad, you know, that I didn't get arrested or didn't do something that caused me to lose my job or ruin my reputation, but I was pretty damn close. But those are good memories, and that, you know, you got to look back at it and just kind of laugh, and thank God you made it to where you are.
Dude, you're not lying. You're not lying. There's a lot of times I'm thinking like, man, which I didn't do a lot of. I mean, I wasn't like going to the bar every night or anything like that, but I worked when my first job in sales was with a company called Pennington Seed, and they put this team together, and we were all the same age. And our boss was like 55, and he was more, I mean, he was just like us. He put us all together. And like that was his rule. Like during well, in the interview, like through the interview, he asked me, "Well, you drink beer, don't you?" And I said, yeah. I said, did it matter? Oh, yeah, it mattered. And then like our first group meeting, I found out why. Like, oh my gosh! Like first thing he calls me, I'm driving to like to a sales meeting in Dallas, and I'm driving over there. He's like, hey, swing by Academy and pick up some of the biggest coolers you can find. I was like, okay, well, we're gonna be doing something outside, and we need water, so I buy these two. I still have these coolers too. It's like 10 years ago, and he shows up, and there's like, he has like 400 beers in his truck. He's like, well, hey, you didn't get ice? And I was like, well,
I didn't know what
I wasn't real sure. I wasn't real sure what we were doing.
That's freaking hilarious. Yeah. You know, one of the best things I think you can do when you're young and you're in a business situation. I mean, maybe, you know, it's a very fine line. You can burn some bridges pretty quick too. But my approach was always like, be the last one to go to bed. Is like, because some of the best conversations and the best opportunities to build relationships were always happening when everybody else just disappeared. And next thing you know, you're sitting with the owner of the company or a senior manager. And next thing you know, you're bonding over whatever. And, you know, some of the best things that I ever did for my business career were definitely well after the cows went to bed. So.
No, that is some of the most solid advice that you may have ever given on your
Stay
podcast.
Up and drink until the last person goes to bed. Just,
I mean, in my sales career life, there's not been many deals that was done not around, you know, maybe a bar or a cold beer or a cocktail, and then even in starting my own businesses, most of them were around, you know, being the last guy, like you just said, being the last guy, and just basically being able to, I hate to say it, but drink your way into success.
Yeah, you can try to say that in the most professional way possible, but it's impossible to come out that way. But
yes.
You know, it's so true. In a way, you're outworking everybody else. You know, I think back to a lot of the trade shows and a lot of the different things I went to. I mean, those are grinds. And, you know, you're up at 5:30 in the morning, but you're up until 1:30 at night. But it's like, hey, all those people that, you know, they got done with the last session, ate dinner, and went back to their room and sat on their computer. It's like, this is time to go to work. You got to build relationships and get yourself connected, you know, because you never know when you're going to meet the next person that's going to take you to the next level. So, yeah.
Oh, because, I mean, that's all this world is networking. Networking to sell something, or networking to go to work for somebody. That's all it is.
100%, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I've got to like 10 minutes before I gotta go pick my son up, and I've been trying to get into a routine of asking everybody a story about their first buck, and I keep forgetting, but I've got it written down on paper, so I'm not gonna forget this time. So I want to hear a story about your first buck.
My first buck. Well, I actually have him mounted. Let me see if I can show him to you. He's in right there, the one on the far right.
Nice.
That's my
That's a hell of
first
a
buck
buck.
here. Yeah, it's the first one that I killed. That I actually actually held him because I shot and missed a couple. I think I may have been like 9 when I killed that deer.
Okay. You were 9. You were 9 when you killed that deer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I mean, dude. I mean, I killed my first deer at like 7 years old. You know,
is there
I mean,
an age? Is there an age in Mississippi, or you basically
No.
just have to be with an adult? And
Yeah, no,
That's awesome.
there's no age, and probably at that time you probably have to be with an adult. I mean, we really, I mean, it's kind of the Wild West down here. But that deer right there, I was hunting with my dad, and I remember we had a gas line. We had like 500 acres, just nasty, just pine plantation, probably like 10 years old. You couldn't hunt it or anything, but a gas line ran straight through the center of it. And we had probably 6 or 7 spots on there. We, plant food plots and have shooting houses and stuff like that. And we'd air them out, man. I mean, my rifle, I killed that deer with a 270 at like 9 years old.
Wow.
Because we're airing them out like they're zeroed at like 300.
Yeah.
Because we're hunting, because we can shoot like 500 yards each way. So I'll never forget that deer. We're sitting there, and I'm looking back and forth like a tennis match in the little food plots, and right behind me, my dad goes, oh, there's a good buck. And I look, and he's coming just like from my right to left behind me, and I look, and I couldn't tell that he was a decent deer. And but I got up, I didn't care. I was just wanting to. I done shot at a couple bucks. I shot one buck, and he got away, and we never found him. And I was just wanting to kill a buck. And so this deer comes out, and I'm trying to shoot him out the back window, and I got this big freaking rifle, and I'm bound and determined to do it myself, right? And I'm banging it, and these shooting houses were made out of tin, and I'm freaking banging it all over the place. And I think it was right before Christmas, like the 23rd or something like that, and he was just dogging a doe that must have came through or something. And he's probably like 30 yards from us, and like just coming across. Well, he gets by me, and I'm thinking, oh crap. So we pull out, and we put in the other window, and we lose him. And all of a sudden, it's kind of thick right in front of the stand. All of a sudden, he steps out and turns right at us. And my dad's going, again, he's done been with me, butchering one shot, missing a couple more. He's like, well, let's just let him get broadside. Boom! And I shot him straight on. I'll never forget. He just went straight over on his back, and still, I didn't realize he was a decent deer. I didn't care if it would have been a spike buck. And just went straight on his back and just fell right white belly up. I was so fired up. I probably could have jumped out of the stand, right? I was just so fired. And when I ran down there, I was when we rolled him over, and I was like, God, and he's right at about 130. And I was just over the moon.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And back to that competitive thing we were talking about. My cousin, he's 2 years younger than me, and he's a big deer hunter. He's actually he hunts. His name's Cody Kelly, and he hunts for small town hunting. Used to be with Primos, and used to be with Waddell.
Okay.
So he hunts on TV now. And me and him always kind of at Christmas and Thanksgiving, what did he kill and all that. And I just knew, like, man, ain't nobody. This is the biggest buck in the state, like nobody's killing a bigger deer than this. So I show up Christmas Day with my little pictures. I went and did like the one day. I don't even think 1 hour was available. I did like the one day thing, and I was taking him to Christmas. I was so fired up. And he shows up with he killed like 165 inch 12 point. And I was like,
age of 7?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I mean, just a freak. It's still maybe his biggest deer to date, and it's just a freaking brute of a deer, and it may not have been 165. It may, but it was probably like it was probably a 150-inch deer.
Yeah.
And he got all kind. He was in the paper and all that stuff, and I was so pissed. So I was like, man, you gotta be freaking kidding me. But yeah, that's the story of my first buck.
That's awesome, man. And so the middle one, that's a freaking beautiful buck, man. Is that?
Yeah, that deer is in Illinois. I killed that deer in Illinois 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he's right at 160.
Yeah.
And
what is
this
that? Eight? Is that an 8 or?
He's a 9. He's a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got on one side. I forget which side. It maybe his right side, and the one right behind me. That's a buck we had on camera, and we all chased at the Illinois farm, and he's 145, just a freaking brute of an 8-point.
Yeah,
Brute of an 8-point.
Heavy. Nice.
Yeah, he's like with me. Like when I think about a Midwest buck, like that's it, the high and tight, the heavy, that's what I think. But that middle one there, the 9-point, this 160, we call that one the ass buck. I shot that deer square in the ass with my bow.
With your bow?
With my bow.
There's
shot
a big
him right.
artery in there. It's not
yeah,
a
and
spot
I
to shoot him.
Well, the story on that one
is what we say.
Well, and I got that artery. But if you have time, I'll tell you the story on that one. So that one, I had some stomach issues that year, and I had gastritis. I don't know if you know what that is.
I've heard of that,
inflammation, and like I'd wake up in the morning, and really till about lunch, I was just completely nauseated and felt awful. That was the only morning I hunted that whole morning. So we hunted this place at our Illinois farm that we call the Ridge, and it is just fire. I mean, it is just, when the rut's on, get in there, and you're going to see a buck, probably a shooter buck. It's just a matter if it's close enough. So I get in the stand, and literally it's kind of it's not a long walk from the road by no means, but it's a little incline, and I was still feeling terrible, and I was like, screw this, I'm driving. So I drove probably like 50 yards from the stand in my truck and drove up there. And so I get in there, and I probably ain't been in the stand 30 minutes, and I look over, and I see kind of leaves just flying over, and I was like, freaking squirrels, man. I don't know why. I'm not going to see shit. And about this time, the deer steps out. I was like, God, that's not a squirrel. Deer literally walks out and it is open as it can be in there. And deer walks out at like 15 yards and just stops. Don't know I'm in the world. So I draw on him, and after I shot, I realized it because I shot and I clipped this little limb. And it clips, and it goes right, and it's in his hind quarter. And he's running in there. You can see for a very long time down this ridge. And I can just see him going away. And it's the worst feeling I've ever had. And I can remember thinking, God, man, I've just butchered, at that point I was like, this deer is freaking booner. He's running down the hill. He looks, behind him, he looks way bigger. And I was like, I've just butchered this deer. So I let him lay until I shot him probably like 6:30 or 6:45 or something, maybe even 7. I don't remember, but I let him lay till about 4 and went in there and got him up only about 100 yards, and I could tell he was pretty bad wounded. And I pulled back out and went back the next morning. It was gun season, first day of gun season, so I went back in there the next morning. He only went about 50 yards.
No shit.
From where I spooked him. He was dead. And I was fired up just because that's my biggest bow kill to date. And I was like, I wanted to kill the deer no matter what. But I was like, man, I hope this deer's dead. I don't have to shoot him with this freaking gun. I had to tag him with my gun tag.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome buck, man. I mean, I was going to say that's a buck of a lifetime, but it sounds like where you're hunting there in Illinois, there's a good chance that could come by each year. So that's pretty awesome. That's a hell of a buck.
Well, I missed the buck of the lifetime last year.
Yeah. Yeah, we all have those moments, but that's why you keep coming back. If it was they walk out, you shoot them, it would get a little old after a while. So it's
You're
the
exactly
challenge,
right.
It's the chase, it's all that. I'd love to hook up with you sometime. I got family. My cousin is married to a guy that helps manage a ranch of some sort in Arkansas.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I'll have to find out what the name of it is. I'll send it over to you. I'll text you or something or
Yeah.
link you in on it. But he's always trying to get us to come down there. It's some pretty awesome place. It's big for duck hunting, but they do a lot with deer and pig and stuff like that. So he's been after us to get down there. So my dad and I have been talking about trying to get down there at some point to check it out. So that doesn't seem like it's too far away from you guys. Maybe we'll.
No, and really, depending on where at in Arkansas, you could be talking about 2 hours away. I mean, it's not far at all. I will give you a little heads up if you've never been to the South. I mean, it's gonna be hard to leave. You know, nobody retires and moves north. Everybody retires and moves south.
And right about now, I don't need anybody to really try to convince me to get the hell out of this state. So, yeah, it's if it wasn't for family and family, there's not a whole lot holding, I think, a lot of people back here right now. But it's a story for another day there, Mr. Trey. So it's been really fun getting to chat with you and get to know you a little bit. And I hope people take a little bit away from this conversation about conservation and how we play a big part in that. And definitely encourage everybody to check you guys out over at Tomorrow's Hunter. So do you want to kind of plug what you guys have, where they can find you, what you guys have
you
going
can
on?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate you coming on. This has been fun. We need to do this again. And I don't know if that was your wife telling you got to go get your kid.
I'm anticipating. What the fuck you doing?
But so I'll make it quick. Yeah, you can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Again, like Billy said, we're on Carbon and Waypoint. You can find us socially, Facebook at Tomorrow's Hunter, Instagram at Tomorrow's Hunter. We have Twitter, not very active on Twitter, but you can find us all that. Shoot us messages, talk to. I mean, we communicate. You're more than likely going to talk with me, and I usually handle most of that. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Love for you to listen to our show. Really would. We have fun, and we have some cool guests sometimes, and we just enjoy doing it. So again, Billy, appreciate you having me, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, buddy. It's good connecting with you. Keep doing the good job with what you're doing, and we'll keep feeding them. Stay out of trouble. Stay out of the bars, all right? I'm worried about you after that conversation we had. See ya, buddy. Take it easy.
See you.
All right, I will. I'll send you over that file. Email it over to you if that works.